right, ladies and gentlemen, anything to report from the break? All right. Mr. Finke?
Knocking the first 2 times and not announcing, and then announcing that entry was being denied.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you have any role in making the decision to breach the door?
No.
Steve, I realize you're about to get into this new line of questioning. Can you
Go ahead. Yeah, let's take 5.
Off the record, 11:46. Back on the record, 11:54.
Okay. When we stopped, we were talking about page 45 of the narcotics manual regarding forced entry into a premises. And number 1 of an officer may break into and enter a premises if the officer has previously announced his or her identity and purpose. And that occurred, we've established.
Correct.
And the first couple of times he knocked and didn't announce. Is that right?
Yes.
And then he announced. Were other people talking during that time?
Yes.
Okay. Who else what else was going on when he's trying to announce? Other people kind of yelling search warrant, police, or is that when Brett is arguing with the neighbor, or what else? What other noise is going on?
Objective.
So the timeline, and this is very simplified, obviously. John makes a normal knock, and at some point prior to the forceful knocks is when this other person from above comes out, and then the forceful knocks and the door comes down. That's obviously very simplified.
Okay. So normal knock, no announce. Forceful knock, no announce. Neighbor comes out, argument ensues. More forceful knock with announce, maybe 1 or 2 times, and then hit the door. Is that how you recall it?
Objection.
That's simplified. Yes, that is more or less the timeline.
Okay. So, and I think part of that time, you were kind of outside watching the perimeter, which you understood to be your job.
Yes.
Or not understood. That was your job.
Correct.
Who assigned that job to you?
Oh, that I don't exactly remember. It would have been Hoover or Jon Mattingly.
Okay. But part of this time, you're out a little farther away watching the perimeter sliding glass door, so to speak.
Yes.
And then you realize, he knocks again, neighbor comes out. Sometime around that time, do you realize Noble doesn't have cover?
No, that I only noticed when Nobles had cover was after he'd already hit the door maybe once or twice.
Okay, so he's already hitting the door before you realize he doesn't have cover.
Yes.
And you have to move at that point in time.
Correct.
Okay. And do you know who all is talking, yelling during the time that Brett is knocking? Or not, excuse me, not Brett.
Right.
John. You said other people are talking during that time when you guys are outside the door. And we know there was a time when Brett and the neighbor are arguing.
Yes.
And they're actually yelling, both of them, aren't they?
Yes.
And does Hoover actually get into a yell? Is he yelling as well?
I don't remember Hoover yelling, no.
Okay. So just Hangison's the only one you recall yelling, and then the neighbor yelling back.
Yes.
And they're going back and forth for a little bit of time.
Correct.
During that time, John is trying to knock and communicate with people in the apartment?
I don't know.
Okay. Is it fairly kind of chaotic?
There's a lot of noise and it's being amplified from this shape of the building. Yes.
Okay. So there's a lot of noise both from him knocking, him announcing, Brett yelling, neighbor yelling, maybe other people announcing police or whatever.
That is not happening at the same time per se.
Okay.
That is happening over several seconds, but it's not happening as in one
Yeah.
form.
Not all at once.
The same.
Yeah.
45 seconds.
And that was just his perception.
Correct.
But all of him yelling, police, search warrant. Did you ever yell?
No.
Okay. Did you hear other officers yell?
Yes.
Okay. You don't know who, you just know they're yelling.
Correct.
Right? And you've got Brett yelling, not at the door, but at the neighbor. You can answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Brent is having a
Shouting
verbal
match.
exchange with this guy.
Is it a shouting match?
It is, and I believe I explained it as the guy is being somewhat belligerent to Brent and questioning his verbal directions.
Okay. The neighbor's being, not neighbor, but the guy's being loud.
Yes.
And did you hear his act? Is he hard to understand?
I am not able to understand what they're saying due to the distance.
She's hearing
All
that.
I hear is loud shouting back and forth.
Okay.
from people.
And other officers are yelling police or search warrant or this is the cops or whatever.
I don't believe anybody was yelling police search warrant during this verbal exchange.
Okay.
Between Brent and the upstairs guy.
Okay. But there came a time when not only John was yelling police search warrant, or did he yell search warrant until the door was breached?
I don't know exactly what everybody says, but you would say police search warrant or search warrant, police come to the door. So a verbal directive of police would have been given, or was given at the door.
Okay. And multiple people are giving it.
Yes.
And does that make, because you've actually given a statement that you didn't talk because when multiple people talk, it makes it hard to understand.
Yes.
And multiple people are talking in this, outside this door.
They are giving loud verbal directives, yes.
Different people, and they're not like all saying 1, 2, 3, let's yell search warrant. Everybody's talking at a different time
Yes.
and saying different things.
Yes.
Making it hard to understand.
Objection.
I believe they're making it very clear by their loud voices of what they're saying.
Did you ever hear anyone from inside say, "We're not letting you in"?
No.
Denying entrance.
No, I heard no one speaking to me from inside the building.
Okay. Moved into position yet?
It could have been due to the distance, yes.
Okay. Once you're aware that if someone is yelling, who is it? Is it reasonable to actually tell everybody, hey, shut up, let's see if we can communicate with this person? So you don't have to bust the door down?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Once somebody says, hey, who is it? Rather than everybody yelling at once, somebody should communicate with them.
Correct, yes.
Now, is that something that is covered in a search warrant briefing or the parking lot plan of who's going to try to communicate with the person in the residence?
Would that be formally communicated? No. that would not be formally communicated. It would be, like I said, police work is fluid, so if I can hear a person and I'm on the back side of the building, I would want to communicate that to folks who are on the front side of the building. So that wouldn't be an assigned job per se. You would set yourself up for failure if you did that.
Okay, so there's not one person that's supposed to talk and try to make contact.
Can you clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, but what I'm at is, if everybody's yelling at once, it makes it much harder to understand.
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yes.
Is anybody assigned to, I'm the guy that's going to be knocking and yelling, everybody else be quiet so they can understand me?
I don't believe there's a formal assignment, but if you're the person standing at the door, you are the person who is going to be knocking and announcing. That would be logical.
Right. And so that person knocks and announces, and everybody else shuts up, so maybe they can understand what's going on. Objection is answered. Which is what you did, actually.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But everybody else didn't. Everybody else is talking. You're being quiet, but other people are yelling.
No, well, John's initial light knock. I'm not sure I understand I don't understand the question. So there's a timeline that's happening here. So this isn't a continuous knocking. There are gaps here, so people can communicate with us and we can communicate with folks.
Okay. But, and what I think I'm trying to ask him, I think we've covered it, but nobody is doing the, John's not doing the only talking. Other people are talking and yelling and trying to communicate.
Yes, other people are giving.
Get back into this. Did you see after the shots were fired, Mattingly returns fire, you return fire, did you see a pile of men in the parking lot when you came out?
I won't object formally just because I don't understand the question.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
After the shot, after you fired the shots
Mhm.
and you retreated to the parking lot,
Mhm.
did you see a pile of men laying on the ground?
At some point, I wouldn't describe it like that.
Okay, how would you describe it?
From which part of the timeline?
Okay, well, were there any other times that you saw a group of men laying on the ground?
What do you mean by laying on the ground?
Well, from the time you guys arrived at Springfield to execute the search warrant until you left with peer support, was there any time in which part of your team were on the ground?
Yes.
All right, what was the first time?
The first time that I saw someone on the ground, laying on the ground, in a prone position would have been Mike Campbell, probably, would have been the closest person I saw to the laying or in a prone position.
Okay, and where was that?
In the, what I call like the T intersection there of the sidewalk and the apartment walkway area, breezeway.
Towards the
area.
curb of the parking lot?
Yes, the curb.
Okay, and when was that?
That was as we were retreating, like you said.
Who else did you see on the ground? Did you see anybody else either fall over Campbell or be beside Campbell on the ground?
So Campbell is on the ground, and that's when, and I can't specifically identify people, but that is when most of the folks that were in the vestibule area kind of bulldoze or walk over Mike Campbell.
Okay, so the people that were in the vestibule area are retreating. And that would include you,
Yes,
Sergeant Mattingly,
correct.
Hoover,
Mhm.
Nobles,
Yes,
James,
yes.
and Hankison? Or was,
Now, I am not able to identify any specific person other than John and Mike Campbell. I can't identify anybody else than them precisely.
okay. But you saw both of those two go to the ground?
Mike Campbell is on the ground and John is scooching, shuffling, you know. He's not on the ground, he is moving over Mike Campbell.
Okay. Do you see him fall over Mike Campbell?
Not necessarily fall, just kind of bulldoze over him, and then they're out of sight.
Let me start, what do you mean by bulldoze over?
Well, Mike Campbell is a fairly large man, and behind Mike Campbell is the parking lot cars, so that is a confined space. So you can't fit Mike Campbell and other bodies through this confined space without there being some type of tripping or falling or stumbling or however you want to call that.
Okay. So, trip, fall, stumble, bulldoze, whatever reason, Mattingly goes over Campbell and goes to the ground.
I don't know if, I can't identify specific people, but people more or less go over Campbell to get through the parking lot.
Okay. Does other people fall?
It is just a mass of people moving over Mike Campbell. And at the same time, I am also moving as well. So I'm not able to give great detail as to who's doing what and whatnot. I just see men falling and tripping and moving forward.
Okay. Now, and you guys are retreating from the apartment. Are you trying to go backwards, or you turn and have your back to the apartment?
I am moving, well, I'll say I am moving away from the apartment. Say that again, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, as you're retreating from the apartment to the parking lot.
Right.
Everybody else is retreating also?
Yes.
Okay. Are you running with your back to the apartment, facing the parking lot, or are you backing out, still looking at the apartment?
No, I am facing the parking lot and moving towards the parking lot.
And that's how you see Campbell,
Yes.
Mattingly, anybody else trying to get
Correct.
over the top of it.
Yes.
And you may have been, do you observe anyone else actually go down, or are they just scrambling over the top of him, or how exactly does that happen?
Objection, I can answer. Answer the question.
I'll use your word, just scrambling, moving forward, just a mass of people, unidentifiable people moving forward, scrambling.
Okay. Is anyone shooting at the apartment at that time?
I believe I said that I am able to see flashing while I'm moving from the vestibule to the parking lot.
Okay.
But, so yes, I'm able to see flashing lights.
Okay.
Flashes.
You don't, at the time, you do not know either if that's one of you guys providing cover or someone else shooting? Or do you?
I don't know.
Okay. At what point in time did you say, unfuck yourself and reload?
That was during the reloading, when we were all in cover.
So after you all get to the parking lot, scramble, fall, whatever, you're kind of in cover.
Yes, we're behind the parking lot. We're behind the parking lot cars.
Now, is someone still out in front of the cars returning fire into the building?
I don't know. I don't think I ever seen anything like that.
Okay. So at what point in time do you recall the shooting stopping?
I'm not sure I'm able to, I put an exact timeline on it. I know that I saw those flashes of lights as I'm moving through those, or just prior to moving through those cars into the parking lot.
Did anyone ride with you from the station to St. Andrew's Church?
No, no.
Okay. Did anyone ride with you from St. Andrew's Church to Springfield?
Yes.
Who was that?
Lieutenant Hoover.
Okay, and his car or truck was left at the church?
Presumably, yes. I'm not sure how he got there.
You don't know how he got to the church?
Correct.
All right. Now, when you left the briefing at the station, where did you go?
I went to the church.
Went directly to the church from the station.
Yes.
Did you go by Dixie Highway, anywhere out on Dixie Highway?
No, I don't believe so. I don't know that area that well. I would have gone right to that location.
Okay. Do you recall who else drove from the church to Springfield?
No, I didn't. We didn't. What's the word? We didn't caravan over there, follow each other over there. So
Did
I
not?
don't know. Correct.
Okay. Everybody just kind of went separate and arrived when they got there?
Yes.
Was that part of the operations plan or the briefing?
To meet at the church, yes. Not transportation to the church.
Okay, so getting from the church to Springfield wasn't something that was covered?
Yes, it was covered
Was it?
at the church.
Okay. And how was it covered? You're not going to caravan, just everybody get there when they get there, or how did that work?
From
Objection misstates his testimony. He said that there was no plan to caravan from the briefing to the church, not from the church to Springfield. Answer the question.
Correct. There's no plan to go from the church to or from the office to the church. There's no plan, but from the church to the location, you want to minimize as many vehicles as you can.
And all get there at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. And so you all followed each other?
Yes.
And
To the church, or to you're killing me here.
I got you.
To Springfield, yes.
And someone rode with you.
Right, Hoover, yes.
Hoover rode with you. Did anyone ride with Nobles?
I don't know.
Did he have anyone else in his truck?
I don't know.
Do you recall how seeing Cole Gibson there?
Yes.
Who
No,
is-
no, not at the church, no.
Okay, at Springfield.
Yes.
When do you recall seeing him?
My sense of time when Cole got there, that was after SWAT got there, so sometime after the event.
Did you talk to Detective Gibson?
Yes.
Okay. Was he your peer escort?
Informally, I would say yes. I hadn't heard the term peer escort, so that night, So Cole would have been informally, I think, my peer in school.
Clip on his tack vest.
Right.
Where did you keep the actual cameras?
What do you mean? The camera is kept on your person.
All
On
right.
the clip, that's where it's kept. on the
It
clip.
goes on the clip that's on your tack vest, is that right?
Yes.
And if you're not wearing a tack vest, where does it go?
It can go in various places, and on the dock, and your desk, it can go in various places.
On your lapel?
Right.
Anywhere you want to wear it?
Mhm.
Right. Now, it was removed from your tack vest that night, is that correct?
No.
It was on?
No, I didn't have a camera on there.
Okay. So if there's a place for it on your tack vest to mount, it was not in that mount, correct?
Correct.
Had it just never been on that tack vest, or was it removed from it?
The camera wasn't with me that evening.
Where was it?
To the best of my knowledge, it was in the car or in my desk.
Were you in your car?
That evening, yes.
Okay, so if to the best of your knowledge, it was in your car, then it was with you that evening.
Objection to the formal question. That's what he said. You answer.
The car was either in my desk or in the car or somewhere, yes.
But you never looked for it,
I don't remember looking for it, correct.
because you were not going to wear it.
Right.
It was that you recorded on the day before with your body cam,
No, I have no idea.
okay? Would it have been your work as a law enforcement officer,
Probably.
okay? And do you do other law enforcement work other than narcotics at that time?
I'm a policeman, so I could pretty much do almost any job that they ask me to do.
Or were you doing other jobs on March 11th, or were you doing narcotics work?
I don't know exactly.
Because if you're doing narcotics work and you're recording and downloading video on March 11th, the day before, you obviously understood that narcotics use their body cameras.
I'm not disputing that. That's correct. I'm aware of yes.
And was there if narcotics used body cameras, if they were issued, and it was used the day before this raid, what reason was it not used for this specific search warrant execution?
I don't know. Where are you looking at, right here? Okay, my fault. Go ahead. I thought you were looking. Okay. CID was created combining other pre-existing investigatory units, narcotics and Ninth Mobile.
Keep going.
The operations manual for CID was revised on July 1, 2020. There was not an operations manual for the unit prior to this, so I examined previous operations manuals for the narcotics unit and Ninth Mobile. The Ninth Mobile operations manual does not discuss use of V or WVS. Additionally, the Ninth Mobile detectives were routinely issued the equipment and were obligated to use the equipment as directed by LNPD policy.
Stop for a second. Were you ever part of the Ninth Mobile?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
The operations manual for the narcotics unit from the effective date of July 18, 2019, addressed WVS with little variation to LMPD policy. There are no additional prohibitions listed for the use of the equipment specific to the covert nature of the investigation.
All right, stop. So, at least according to this report, there is no, and let's use the exact language. The operations manual for the narcotics unit addressed WVS with little variation to the LMPD policy. Okay? Now, do you dispute that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and what do you base that on?
I base that on my experience in the years I was in narcotics.
Okay. Is anything specific to the policy, or just that's how you did it?
Both, probably.
Okay. When had you last reviewed the narcotics operations manual, SOP?
I have no idea.
So you weren't particularly familiar with it on either in March of 2020 or today?
No, I'm familiar with all of the policies. I just hadn't, I don't know when the last time I reviewed it would have been.
Are you aware of anything in the narcotics policy that exempts you from having to use a body camera if it's assigned to you?
I don't have that policy in front of me, but I would say there are exemptions. Yes, there are. There would have to be.
Well, we looked at it earlier. It's exhibit.
This is not the narcotics policy, though.
That is.
Okay.
And are you familiar with anything in the narcotics policy that exempts narcotics officers from using WVS if it's been assigned to them?
I mean, I would have to go through this whole thing, but there has to be exemptions of using a video recorder for the work we do.
You don't know what it is, you just think there has to be one.
There has to be one.
Okay. Part of a policy that exempted narcotics from wearing WVS.
There would have to be one.
Okay, but you don't know it, you just think there was one.
Correct.
Because nobody did.
I'm not sure about that. I would say there has to be a policy on when you can't, when an appropriate time would be to wear the video system.
You're just not familiar with it.
I can't remember it today.
Okay. And as we talked about initially, these policies and SOPs are put in place as best practices,
Yes.
right? And they can be deviated from in a limited number of circumstances.
I would agree, yes.
Right? One of them is exigent circumstances,
Yes.
public safety,
Correct.
if something in it's not addressed by the policies,
Correct.
right? Other than that, you're supposed to follow them.
Correct.
And they are designed, one, not only for officer safety, but public safety as well.
Yes.
And choosing to ignore one just because you think there might be something that allows you to can be dangerous, can't it?
Object to the form of the question.
Can you say that again?
Yeah. Choosing to ignore a policy just because you think there's a reason you can without knowing it can be dangerous, can't it?
Object to the form of the question.
It would be inappropriate, yes.
And much like if these people doing the search warrant operations plans, they just said, I don't think I have to do that, it doesn't really apply to me. That puts you in danger when they don't do what they're supposed to, doesn't it?
Object to the form of the question.
It could complicate situations by not following that form, yes.
The procedures are in place for a reason. And ignoring them or disregarding them makes inherently dangerous situations more dangerous.
Objection.
Department without positively identifying a threat.
All right, stop for a second. Are you trained in the academy about use of deadly force?
Yes,
Target identification?
yes,
Being responsible for every shot? You're accountable for every shot?
yes,
Do you, do you agree that you shot 16 times that night?
I have been informed of that prior 16 minutes.
And I've read your, you at the time had no idea how many times you shot.
Actually, for
I was under the impression I fired 4 rounds at the time.
Was there a time in which you had a positive target identification on the shot that was fired at Sergeant Mattingly?
I have clearly, over various interviews, clearly explained what I was shooting at.
And that was a shadowy figure?
That was a deadly threat in front of me that shot at me, correct?
Well, and again, I don't want to go too far into this. The individual that was killed did not fire a gun at you, correct?
Correct.
And did you ever actually see a gunshot be fired at you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Where were you when you observed the shot being fired?
In the threshold, the frame of the door. Not in the frame of the door, but within the frame of the door.
And Sergeant Mattingly was in front of you in the frame of the door.
Correct.
And you were right behind him in the frame of the door?
I was behind him, yes.
Now, is that, moving back to the briefing and the planning, is that how you guys were briefed and to execute the search warrant?
No, like we discussed earlier, the plan changed due to seeing the Mike Rules didn't have a covered person.
Somebody wasn't, either didn't get assigned the proper role to cover Mike Nobles, or they didn't do their job.
objection, asking the attorney.
Mike Nobles, correct, did not have a covered person when he was working.
Right. And again, that would be something that has to be assigned.
Yes.
And at least either it wasn't done or somebody didn't do it.
Same objection.
Correct.
Right? And so you took that responsibility.
Yes.
Now, are you trained for both of you to be in the doorway at one time?
Well, when you say in the doorway, as we all know, a doorway is a small space. You can't fit 2 men side by side into a doorway. You stagger each other like a roller coaster or a train car.
Okay? So, and would that be what is called in police work, I guess, the fatal funnel?
Correct. A confined space would be the fatal funnel.
No. Was it your all's part of the briefing and plan for both of you all to be in the doorway at the same time?
How else do you get into a doorway without standing in front of the doorway?
Okay, and my question is, the part of the planning was for both of you guys to be in the doorway at once.
Object form.
You can only fit so many inches within a doorway. Maybe I'm not understanding your question.
No,
You can't walk two people through a door. Is that what you're asking me?
No, I'm saying, was that how it was planned? You guys both being in the doorway together, was that part of the plan of breaching the apartment?
How else do you get multiple bodies through a doorway if you're not standing in the doorway?
Is that a yes?
No.
It's common sense. You have to form a line to walk into a door.
Okay, and so are you saying that was part of you and Mattingly both being in the doorway?
That's
Staggered.
That's not a plan. That's common sense.
Okay, well, and again, when you're executing the entry of an apartment, we do all of these things as required by policy to plan that out, correct?
Correct.
So there's not mistakes that happen, and both the public and officers aren't put in unreasonable danger. And that plan includes how entry is made, who goes in, when they go in, and how that is done, correct?
Yes.
Was part of that plan for Mattingly to go in first, you be staggered behind him also in the doorway?
Initially, no, that was not, to my knowledge, that was not the plan, no.
Yeah.
Due to my assignment, yes.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm trying to get to is, it was never planned for you and Mattingly to both be in the doorway.
Yes, correct.
In the briefing, at the church, none of this is ever part of a plan.
Object to the form of the question.
Correct. There was not a formal plan. Yes, correct.
And all of those, through no fault of yours, were supposed to be done before you're in that situation.
Object to the form of the question. Can we check we understand what he's asking?
Yes, there was a plan prior to me moving forward.
Actually, I think, what was my last question?
And all of those, through no fault of yours, were supposed to be done before you're in that situation.
That being who goes in, who makes entry, who goes in first, who goes in second, who's covering Nobles, who's covering Mattingly, all of those were part of, or supposed to be planned out.
Yes.
Okay. None of that was actually done and planned out ahead of time by whoever at the station or whoever at the church.
Object. The state's testimony.
No, there was a plan from the church to the parking lot, or from the church to. We had the plan, the operations. See, now I'm confusing myself. You're confusing me. We had our church parking lot operations plan with individual signs.
Okay. And whose assignment was it to cover the ramp?
I don't know.
And as, again, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but that is one of the most important roles.
Objection. Answer. Horse is dead.
Cover for
Yes,
the ramp.
Mike Nobles' job is, the cover person for Mike Nobles' job is an important job, yes.
That has to be assigned.
Yes.
And to your knowledge, it wasn't assigned.
I don't remember if it was or not. Yes, correct.
And your assignment was to cover the perimeter.
Yes.
So in back to what I was asking of, part of the plan, you were never supposed to be entering the doorway together with Mattingly, were you? You were supposed to be watching the perimeter.
That's a hard question to answer because plans change. But to answer your question, if plans go exactly how they're supposed to go, then the answer would be yes.
And by the same token, the entire plan, if you have a ballistic shield, that's supposed to go in first before anybody.
I'm not an expert on the ballistic shield, but from my training experience, yes, the ballistic shield should go first.
And had anyone, or at least you, been aware that there was a ballistic shield available, either at the briefing at the station or at the church briefing, you would have said, hey, how about the ballistic shield guy go first?
Objection, point of question.
Or would you have said that?
I think that would have been implied.
Yeah, it just, everybody knows that's supposed to go first, don't they?
Correct.
Objection, point of question.
And in whatever briefing and whatever plan that was set up to go into this apartment, nobody ever knows until you're walking up there, oh, we've got a ballistic shield.
I didn't know until we were walking out.
And it upsets you
Yes, it irritated me.
because, again, that changes everything, doesn't it?
Yes.
Question asked and answered.
Yes.
Now, turn to page 50. Can you do police-related activities, wouldn't it?
Depending on what I'm doing in that unit at the time. I wouldn't want to wear a body camera while I'm interviewing a confidential informant. Well, that's one example.
Well, are you aware if there's a specific exception in the body cam policy for confidential informants?
I would hope so.
There is, but is there any other examples other than confidential informants that you can think of?
I'm sure there are, but I can't think of any right now.
Let's take a break, about 5 minutes.
Back on the record at 1:40.
Mr. Cosgrove, handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 8. We're talking about we've already looked at Exhibit 1, the narcotics manual. That's the SOP regarding narcotics investigations. I'll look through there and see if you see anything that addresses body cams in that, or exemptions for body cams. To knock and announce. Who made that decision?
I don't know who made that decision, but that's what I was instructed to do while in the briefing room at the office.
That at the headquarters or station,
Correct.
they said knock and announce.
Yes.
Now, did you determine that to be an order that you could not deviate from?
You could deviate from that, yes, but based on what I was told, the totality of it, the female, the heavy set, the direction that I was given on the board, you could deviate from it for reasons that we would determine while on scene, such as like some kind of exigent circumstance, somebody needing immediate help or something like this, just some extenuating circumstance.
Okay. Now, if someone needs immediate help, you don't even have to have a search warrant.
Correct, and that's why I kind of stumbled over myself there.
All right. But if you are going to the if you have a knock and announce warrant, okay, you're not allowed to just go in and no knock, are you?
No.
You have to knock and announce. If
Right.
you have a no knock warrant, you can go in without knocking, or you can choose to knock.
Yes.
Right. Now, however, if you have a no-knock warrant, SWAT is supposed to do it, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. And so, simply because you have a no-knock warrant and you decide, oh, we're gonna knock and announce, you don't get to go there and change your mind all of a sudden because SWAT's not there.
Objection to the following question. I want to further object because this witness has already testified that he was not a part of the decision-making. And to the extent there are any questions about the risk assessment matrix, he's already testified that he wasn't involved in the creation, preparation, or submission of that document and had never even seen it.
And you wish you'd have seen it, don't you?
It would have been
Objection to the
helpful.
following question.
An accurate risk assessment matrix would have been very helpful, wouldn't it?
Yes.
But back to the question I was asking if you have a no-knock warrant and you're briefed that we're gonna knock and announce, and just you guys, CID guys, go. Absent something, somebody inside being at risk, you guys aren't allowed to just say, no, we're gonna go in as no-knock, because SWAT is not there, correct?
Correct, unless there's some new mitigating circumstances that would make it, or would go back on the original no-knock. Correct.
All right, the Commonwealth's next witness.
Your Honor, first and foremost, that's the end of the clip, and at this time I would move to admit it's going to be Commonwealth's Exhibit 155, which are all 16 clips together on this USB drive.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, it'll be so admitted.
Commonwealth calls Chelsea Napper.
If you'd raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. You can take your mask off while you're testifying if you wish, but you're not required to.
So state your name and spell it, please.
Chelsea Napper, and it's Chelseey. Last name too. Napper.
And if you would speak up so we can hear. And do you live in Louisville?
Yes,
Did you grow up in Louisville?
I did.
Did you go to high school in Louisville?
I did.
Now, do you live with Cody Etherton?
Yes.
And how long have you all been together?
I would say a little over 6 years. Or actually a little under 6 years, sorry. Or no, a little over 6 years,
Little
sorry.
over 6 years.
Yeah.
Do you and Cody have children?
Yes.
And who are they?
I have an older son named Zayden, and we have a 2-year-old together named Bryson.
Now, you said Zayden is your son.
Right.
When you met Cody, did you have, Zayden had already been born?
Not when I met him, but me and Cody have known each other for a long time, but I had him before Bryson.
And did you always have custody of Zayden?
I'm sorry, before me and Cody were together, I meant to say I did have Zayden.
And did you always have custody?
Yes.
Now, Bryson was born when? You're and Cody's son.
June 3rd, 2020.
So in March 12th specifically, you were pregnant with Bryson?
Yes.
How many months pregnant?
I would say about 7 months.
And where did you and Cody, in March of 2020, you, Cody, and Zayden live?
In St. Anthony Garden Apartments.
And what's that address?
3003 Springfield Drive, Apartment 3.
Ms. Napper, I'm going to hand you 2 photographs marked Commonwealth Exhibit 156. And what does that photograph show?
This was right after Bryson was born. Well, I would say a couple weeks after he was born. We went to Cody's grandma's to just visit.
And that's you, Cody, Zayden, and Bryson.
Yes.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of the family?
Absolutely.
I looked at it, Exhibit 156 at this time.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, it'll be so admitted.
Now, 157, and you this photograph. And who is that?
That's Zayden.
That's Zayden?
Yep.
And is that when was that taken, that picture?
This was, I would say, in 2020.
And is that a accurate picture of your son?
Yes.
And so we move to admit Exhibit 157.
No objection.
It'll be so admitted.
How long had you all lived at 3003 Springfield?
Over a year, but less than 2 years.
And what was your apartment number?
Apartment 3.
Now, I want you to, we're going to put a photograph on the screen behind you, which Commonwealth has already been admitted as Commonwealth Exhibit 71. And is there a laser pointer up there?
I don't see one. Thank you.
You would take a look at this overhead, and as you see the building 3003 designated up there, and can you just point to it with the laser? Now, generally, when you all would come home to your apartment 3 there, how would you enter the complex here? Would you just take us on the route that you would come in?
Well, so if you go up the road, like it would be over here, down this road, there's a main road like over here. You go up and there's an entrance that it's not really shown in this picture.
So how would you come in, from the lower road or the road right?
No, there was a gate that blocked this. So we would have to come into the main entrance of the apartments, which would be this
That
way
way?
we would take.
And because the gate was locked
Right.
at that time in March, early March of 2020.
Yes.
So did you have a particular parking place that you all used?
Not like one specific, no, we just parked.
So those buildings that are on the, at what we're looking at, the lower road there as you're coming in, those apartment buildings are right across the street then from your building?
These?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you, at that time, were you working
I just lost my job from COVID.
because of COVID?
Yes.
Because actually, that's right about the day that COVID hit.
March 6th is when I would say the majority of people were either laid off or sent to work from home. And that's, so about a week before this happened.
And again, if you could speak up just a little bit. And was Cody working?
Yes.
And what hours did he work?
I mean, he left really early in the morning, of course, Monday through Friday, but he did a lot of, working overtime at night and on the weekends.
Now, if you would look at Exhibit 76, which has been admitted, and that's behind you again on the screen, and point out where the front door is of your apartment, and then the bedroom that you and Cody used, and the bedroom that Zayden slept in. And then specifically in the bedroom where Zayden slept, where was his bed?
His bed, so the pillows were right here, but it would go long ways, just like that.
So the pillows were on that wall, that common wall with the living room then.
Right.
And the doorway then from your and Cody's bedroom was right across from the doorway to Zayden's bedroom.
Right.
As we see there. Now, you said you had lived there about 2 years in the building.
Yes.
Did you know the neighbors as you're standing in your front door to apartment 3? Apartment 4 would be directly to your left if you're facing the parking lot. Did you know the folks that lived in apartment 4?
I didn't know them, but I passed by with them.
And who would you,
I mainly, are you asking? Go ahead, sorry.
well, did you know their name?
No.
And how many people were there?
I would say 2 females, and I saw 1 female with a younger child quite often, and then maybe 1 male.
Now, you saw a male that was actually living there, you thought? Or coming to visit?
I mean, honestly, I didn't think too much about it to know whether he was living there or not.
Okay. And how long had you been seeing the male?
I knew 2 females lived there for a fact.
Okay.
I don't know. I couldn't put a
I can't
time-
hear you once
I
again.
couldn't put a time on it. I just seen him in passing. I didn't know, if
Okay.
he lived there or not. I couldn't tell you if he had a bedroom or if he lived.
Okay. So did you know any of the other neighbors, such as as you're facing looking into the breezeway, to the left of your apartment would be apartment 2. Did you know those people?
I did, in the back, so she was an older lady, yeah, I knew her.
So her doorway was right next to your front door.
Right.
Then because would you point out your patio there at the back? So was her patio right next to yours?
Yes.
And then did you know the people in apartment 1?
I mean, if they were in a crowd, I could point them out, but no, I didn't know them personally.
What about any of the 4 apartments upstairs? That would be the number 5, number 6, number 7, or number 8.
No, I didn't know them.
You didn't know them. Now, on March the 12th, what were you and Cody and Zayden doing that evening?
That evening, I didn't have, I remember we did, we colored in a coloring book and just pretty much took it easy. We went to bed fairly early, I'd say about 10:30, and
You all were in bed then, 10:30? And Zayden was in bed?
yes,
And Zayden was in his bedroom,
yes,
in his bed.
right.
Now, first of all, are you a light sleeper or heavy sleeper?
I'm a very heavy sleeper,
Have you always been that way?
always.
What about Cody?
He is a very light sleeper.
And how about Zayden?
He's a heavy sleeper.
He is a heavy sleeper. Once again, I'm going to have to ask you to speak up.
I'm sorry. He's a very heavy sleeper.
So were you all asleep after you went to bed about 10, you said, and were you asleep?
Yes.
What happened that woke you up?
About 12:40-ish, I feel like me and Cody both jumped out of bed at the same time. It was extremely loud. It felt like, I don't know, somebody set off a bomb or something.
What did you do?
So he took off, and
Who is he?
Cody took off down the hallway, and I just froze for a second, and then I think he said that our apartment is getting shot up, and so he either said something about Zayden, or I don't remember exactly, but I went to check on Zayden, and I felt on him because he said there was bullets flying everywhere. So
Cody said that?
Yes. So I felt Zayden and made sure he was okay, and I walked out of his room and I went to the hallway because I was too. So I go and I check on Zayden. I walk out of the hallway because I was too scared to go past here. So Cody told me, get Zayden, get on the ground, and I got Zayden. I got on the ground.
So point out where you got on the ground.
I got Zayden, and we got down here once everything was fine. The noise stopped. I walked out and I sat down here on the ground. I called my grandma. She said that she really couldn't understand what I was saying, and told me if it was an emergency to call 911. So the reason I called my grandma was because first of all, I had just jumped up from sleep, so I was kind of, and I knew that something bad was happening, and my first instinct told me that I needed to get Zayden out of the situation. Whatever it was, I had no idea what was going on, but I felt like Zayden needed to be picked up. So I called her. Like I said, she said she couldn't understand me, told me to call 911 if it was an emergency. So I called 911. She said, she kind of asked me what was going on, and I told her all I knew. Our apartment was being shot up. There was bullet holes all through the walls, and she assured me that the police were on the scene. And then I later found out they're the ones shooting up.
Okay. Have you had a chance to listen to that 911 call?
I have.
And does that sound like an accurate representation of what you said when you called 911, the first time you called?
Yes.
We would move to admit Exhibit 158
No objection.
It will be so admitted.
and play the 911 call.
Operator Sparks, where is your emergency? 3003 Springfield Drive. 3003 Springfield Drive. And what apartment number? Apartment 30. What's going on there, ma'am? Well, something's going on next door, and there's bullet holes all the way through the wall, through our glass, and my boyfriend tried to open the door, and they're out there, the cops are out there yelling to get back to the house. Yeah, you need to... Okay, yeah, you all need to stay inside your apartment. Okay, our glass door is shattered, and I understand there's something going on, but I have a 5-year-old in here, so something needs to be explained to me. Okay, we have an officer-involved situation that is going on, so you need to just stay inside your apartment. Okay, well, is somebody going to come here when it's all said and done? Because our glass door is shattered. I know you know what's going on. Okay, what is your name? I'm Chelsea. Chelsea, I'm going to put a run up for you, and as soon as we can, we'll get somebody out here, okay, to come check on y'all. Is anybody hurt? No. Okay, well, okay, I'm going to let them know, okay? Okay, thank you.
So that was the first time you called 911,
Yes.
and they told you to stay in the apartment.
Right.
Now, and you had seen the glass all shattered on your back, your patio door. Was it cold that night?
Freezing.
So were you, I guess the air was coming in then through that door.
Yes.
So what did you do?
From there, from the 911 call, or
Yes.
about the freezing? So that was the first call. A little bit of time went by, and that's when I heard somebody. It was the neighbor in apartment 3, or no, apartment 4. I'm sorry, and it sounded like, to me, it sounded like a kid. I thought a kid was crying over there. I didn't know what happened, but they kept saying help, help, and I don't know if it was breathe or something, and I told Cody, I said, there is a child over there, and I think you need to go get the child. And I don't know if he was, at some point in time, he tried to go out he opened the front door. The layout's gone, and they yelled at him really loud to get back in. And I can't remember exactly how each thing happened, but I know when he tried to when the glass was falling down, he pulled the blinds to, I don't know why he did, and there was a bunch more officers out back holding lasers and guns on him. There was a dog telling him to put his hands through, there was a bullet hole in the glass door, and right underneath it was a really big hole.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and point to where that, you said he was putting his hands out, Cody was?
No, he didn't put his hands out. They directed him to put his hands out, and he wouldn't do it. And I told him, it was just so scary and crazy. I didn't know what was going on. They were screaming at him through the back door, and his adrenaline started. He's telling me to call 911 again. They got the wrong apartment, he said. And so that's the second call that I made. And I remember telling him, I'm like, you better get the back here because they're going to shoot you, is what I said.
Okay, so you called again to 911.
Right.
And have you had a chance to listen to that 911 call?
Yes.
And is that, as you remember it, what you heard on the recording, what you remember saying on that call?
Yes.
Would move to admit, play Commonwealth's Exhibit 159?
No objection.
It'll be so admitted.
3003 Springfield Drive. Yes. Is that a house or an apartment there? An apartment. What's the apartment number? Apartment 3. Apartment 3. What's your name and phone number? Chelsea. Number 502-341. What's going on there today, Chelsea? I don't know if they have our apartment confused with whatever is going on, but they're telling him, they're pretty much holding him at gunpoint, saying, get out of the window, our apartment's got bullet holes through it. My son is in here sleeping, and I need somebody to let them know, like, that we need help in here. I don't understand what's going on. Is there somebody inside of your apartment? Me, my boyfriend, and my son. And the dog. Who's inside of your apartment with the gun? Nobody. I'm saying the cops are like through the apartment next to us. And they were really aggressive when we tried to open the door and figure out what's going on. And I don't know what's going on, but just stay inside of your apartment, okay? Okay. Okay. But we just see him at the door, and they held him at gunpoint. They held who at gunpoint? My boyfriend. They told you what?
The police, I went to the back door. The bullets came through the front wall from the next apartment where the shooting happened, through our wall, and hit our back screen door. And I went to the back screen door just now, and there's police back there with the flashlights, and they're telling me to put my hands out the fucking window.
I'll call over to the dispatcher and let them know. Just stay inside of your apartment, okay? Don't go outside.
All right.
So once again, they told you to stay inside.
Yeah.
Did you, at some point, the officer come to the door and explain to you all what had happened, or did they come and take photographs?
During everything, I had no idea that it was the police. I thought somebody had gotten a fight in either the parking lot or in the neighbors, or something happened. And when I think that it was either an officer or a detective that came in hours later and asked to take pictures. And I asked the officer if the holes were from the police, and he told me, he said, he kind of just shrugged his shoulders. He was like, I don't know.
So they took, and did they collect the two bullets that had, one bullet on the dining room table? Did they collect that?
Yes, and I think there was also one on the living room floor.
By the shattered glass door? And the bullets that came through, they damaged that dining room table.
Yes.
Now, at some point, did you try to do something about the fact that the sliding door was now gone and the cold air was making it very cold in there?
So, once, I don't know, daylight came, I opened the door, things had calmed down, and, I mean, I wouldn't say calmed down, but to the point where it was getting freezing in there. Zayden was getting ready to wake up. I kept opening this door. Okay, so the breezeway is right here. And I tried to go out and talk to the landlord because she wasn't answering the phone. I didn't even know if she knew what had happened or anything. And there was an officer standing in the breezeway saying that we couldn't come outside. And it was a crime scene, that nobody could come outside. You would have to use the back shattered, I guess, walk through glass is what she wanted us to do. I have no idea. And so I kept going back in and kept trying. Finally, I guess they had the cones out there and they did everything they needed to do. And I walked up that hill you've seen that I drove through, because I couldn't get a hold of her on the phone. So I took Zayden, and mind you, the door to apartment 3 or apartment 4 is wide open, where a body laid for hours and hours and hours, and I had to block my 5-year-old son, who is wondering. I guess I don't even know what I told him had happened, but I tried to keep it from him forever. And
So you walked where? There's the overhead again, if you want to point to where the office is.
I walked up this way. All this was blocked off, so I walked this way, and I walked up, and I walked to the landlord's house, to the landlord's office, and tried to get like a shop vac to suck the glass up, or the door boarded or something. I don't know what I was trying to do, but something.
And did they help you out?
It took a long time. They came and put boards on it that evening, and then it stayed that way for quite a while.
Now, that was your furniture in the apartment.
Yes.
You own the furniture. So at some point after all this happened, did you talk to a lawyer about suing the police?
Well, I remember taking a little bit of time, and I think that there was some officers who were there the next couple of days. One of them actually lived in that apartment complex, and we were talking about it, and I learned that it was in fact the police that shot through our apartment. And I was just thinking, looking at the table, dealing with my 5-year-old who's got all these questions, saying he wants to grow up and be. I picked him up from his.
Judge, I'm going to object at this point. That's not responsive to the question that was asked.
She's explaining how she, if let her continue with this. Well, did you call the police about the damage to your property?
I called Louisville Metro Police Department and asked them if there was a way I could hold someone accountable for their actions because of the questions I was dealing with out of my 5-year-old. My furniture was ruined. My clock was shot. I just threw it in the garbage. And they gave me the number to the Kentucky Bar Association.
So you called first the Louisville police.
Right.
And asked them how you could be compensated for this, the furniture that was destroyed and so forth.
And not to mention they could have killed.
And so,
I'm pregnant. And
but
yeah.
was it someone at the Louisville Police Department that advised you to call the Kentucky Bar Association?
Right.
Okay. Now, and so eventually you did get in contact with a lawyer and you filed a lawsuit. And did you pay the lawyer to file
No.
this? And so did you come up with the amount of money to put in the lawsuit to ask for?
No, I did not.
And so if you do obtain any money, what percentage will the lawyer get?
40%.
And you all moved away eventually from apartment 3.
Yes, we did.
So we have admitted Exhibit 158 and 159.
Yes, they're both admitted.
That's all the questions I have.
Cross-examination?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Napper, I just have a couple questions about the timeline here. You indicated that you and Cody went to bed about 10 o'clock,
Yes.
and do you know what time this all happened?
I would say right after 12:40.
And you indicated that it happened, it sounded like a bomb went off, correct?
Exactly.
And could you tell what that was?
After the fact, I mean, I jumped out of bed, I heard the noise, I learned that it was Iran with gunshots altogether.
Altogether, do you have any idea how long that lasted?
I have no idea.
I mean, was it a half hour? Was
No.
it a few seconds?
It was pretty short.
Okay. I think you described it at one time as sounding like Fort Knox, correct?
Exactly.
And that's what woke you up.
Yes.
Did you ever hear any conversation outside while that was going on?
No. I heard that and a neighbor crying.
Okay. And was the neighbor was crying after you heard that Fort Knox, or heard the explosion, correct?
Yes.
How long was that afterwards, do you know?
I couldn't give you an exact minute by minute, but it was after the gunshots.
Okay. Your apartment is to the rear of the apartment where this shooting actually occurred, correct?
Yes.
It adjoins the, sort of the back end of it?
It's right behind it.
Okay. Do you know what time the police, well, you said the police came and wouldn't let you out of the apartment, correct?
Well, the police were there from the beginning.
Well, but I mean, after this was over, you said you tried to leave the apartment and they wouldn't let you go,
Not
correct?
the first couple times, no.
And that was up near about sunrise, you said?
I mean, I wouldn't quote me, but it was well after 12:40 at midnight. I mean, after the shooting.
What time did you go up to the manager's apartment?
That was definitely daylight.
Was it morning, afternoon?
Morning. It was, I would say, not very early morning, but it was not afternoon.
Were the police still there at the apartment building?
Different ones were in and out all day.
Do you know what time did you see the last one, if you recall?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. There were so many different people there. I have no idea when the last time I saw one. There was an investigation going on for well into the next day.
Well into the next day? Okay, and you used the term scary and crazy. What did you mean by that?
I meant that I was scared for my life. I was scared for Cody's life. I was scared for my unborn child's life and my 5-year-old's life.
And this was right about the time this was all going on, correct?
What do you mean? Of course I was scared. There was gunshots flying through my apartment.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to determine is right at that moment is when it was pretty wild and crazy, scary and crazy.
It's been crazy ever since it happened. For 2 years now.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Anything else of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
You can step down, thank you.
Thank you.
The Commonwealth's next witness?
Commonwealth closes its case.
All right, thank you. Counsel, would you approach for a moment? Ladies and gentlemen, anything to report from the break? All right, so tomorrow we will gather together again to hear additional testimony in the case. We'll get back together tomorrow morning at 10. I have a few things on my docket between 9 and 10 that I do need to take care of tomorrow. You will hear, as I said, additional testimony. We will not, however, be doing closing arguments tomorrow. And I tell you that because you may want to plan for the day that we have closing arguments and you begin your deliberations, depending on how long you deliberate. And that's just totally up to you, how long it takes you to reach a unanimous decision. You could be here for a while, or a very long while, or a short while, depending on your ability to agree with one another. So we won't have closing arguments until Thursday. And that's the day that if you have children or pets, you might want to get someone to make sure that they're being cared for, just in case you should be here longer than the normal hours that we have had during this trial. But that will not take place tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll get back together at 10. I don't expect that tomorrow will be a very long day for us in court. So I hope you have a nice night. Please remember the separation admonition. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
All rise for the pledge of